Okay, teachers, we're going to build that rocket that you just designed in RockSim. This is what your final product should look like, or something very similar to this. So let's get started and build this rocket. Cut. Okay, this is our rocket. You can print this right from RockSim, and it'll give you some of the information there on the length and the mass and some good information there. You can print this off of RockSim. What I do is when I print them, I go ahead and mark it up so that when I'm working out here in the shop or you guys are in the school, you can easily reference your dimensions. So our top body tube here is going to be 237 millimeters. Our bottom body tube is going to be 220 millimeters. Our total length is going to be 457, which happens to be the length of one of these body tubes. Something else we can do in RockSim, we can print our fin profile, and notice I already have ours printed here, but it's exactly as it's planned out in RockSim. I put dimensions on there just for my reference. You can also print out a parts list from RockSim of all the parts and pieces that you used in your rocket design. A little later, when we get to our fins, remember earlier we were talking about drag? So to reduce drag on this rocket, we are going to sand the leading edge fin so that it's rounded, and we're going to sand the tip cord here so that it's rounded. There's no need to do the bottom portion of the fin. So we're just going to sand the top and the side so that it looks just like this, rounded. All right, let's get started here. I got my body tube. First thing we can do is just pop these out. You can use your fingers if you want. Whatever works best for you. Okay, first thing we're going to do with our body tube here is draw just a nice straight line. We're going to use our guide here. And we're just going to put the body tube in the guide like this. Take your pen or pencil and make just a nice straight line. We're going to use that line later when we install our launch lugs. Next we're going to do, remember our dimensions here. Our lower dimension here. We want the top to be 237 and the bottom to be 220. Okay, so I'm measuring from the bottom. Our bottom dimension is 220 millimeters. So here's 100 millimeters, 200, 220 millimeters. That means my top should be 327. Just line that up roughly. Or I'm sorry, 237. And you can see it's right at 237 millimeters. Okay, to cut these body tubes, you're going to use these guides. And you just slip it on there like that, open it up and then slide it on. And we're going to slide it to our mark. So I made my mark right there. And if you're off a little bit, don't even worry about it. It's going to be fine. So I can hold this tight like this and cut. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of tape here. to help hold it on there. I'm just going to take my tape, put it on the tube like that, and now I'm just going to cinch this down nice and tight. And I'm kind of pulling here as I'm wrapping, and that's going to hold that in place real nice. Now I'm going to take my knife right on the edge here, and I'm just going to rotate and let my blade ride the lip of that cardboard cutting piece. Maybe real light pressure here. You're not trying to do this all in one cut. So now, just that little spot right here we need to finish off. And we can slide that off. Set that aside, we're done with that. So now we got our 2 sections of body tube. These body tubes fit really tight with these couplers. So this is where our fins are going to go. We are going to sand the little bits of burr that are left from when we cut. Just give that a nice sanding so that the coupler slides in and out of there real nice. Go around the circle like this is the best way. Okay, let's test our fit here. Oh, and that's perfect. Nice fit. We'll do the same. We'll designate which side is the top side of the body tube, which side is the bottom. I'm going to go with this nice clean edge being the top. Again, just sand that, or I'm sorry, being the, this is going to be the midsection where our coupler is going to go. Sand that real nice. Check our fit, and again, real nice fit there. So I'm happy with that. Okay, you are gonna grab a scissors. We're gonna cut that little area right there. And do this all around. We're doing this to make so our fins go in real nice and easy, and you'll see here. So we'll get rid of that. Okay, so our body tubes are prepped. Let's go ahead and we're going to make this coupler now. So we've got 2 bulkheads that we're going to have to install. We're going to also use a length of paracord. This is this green paracord. So, how much to use? I'm gonna go with, this has got a real nice stretch factor to it. Just like maybe, I don't know, what is this, about 24 inches, 18 inches or so. Just a length about that big, it doesn't have to be exact. Cut that. And then you're just gonna take that paracord, push it through the hole, and then just make a little knot at the very top of the paracord. And that's all it does, is keep that from pulling through. We're going to use our CA glue and accelerant in the classroom tomorrow. you teachers will be using these little disposable super glue gel packs. I'm taking my bulkhead, I'm going to put it inside the coupler here. And you notice I'm putting a little bit of pressure here just to kind of keep it from sliding through. And I only place that in there about maybe, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch or so. Just give yourself a little tiny lip here. If you've got a loose bulkhead, you may need another teacher to help just hold that for you while you get it glued up. So my glue is all ready to go here. Put that back in place there. And like I said, just maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch deep in there is all you need to do. I'm going to put a little CA glue on there in the corner. Just tacking it in place. Give it a little spritz with our accelerant. We're just going to let that sit a second. Okay, that's cured in there. I'm going to come over to the top side. We're going to do the same thing here with this one. And this one, maybe recess this one just like that. Maybe 1/2 inch or so. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. This top bulkhead is to just prevent the egg when we have it installed. Just keep the egg from sliding into the coupler. So again, we'll take our CA glue, put a little bit on the edge there. I'll give that a spritzing. Let that cure for a second. Okay, next we're going to be using a little bit of JB Weld here. This is a really quick set 1 minute epoxy. And you just need a little tiny bit of this 2-part epoxy. Don't need a whole lot for what we're doing right now. So maybe just a tiny bit. Put the cap back on this right away. And then we're going to mix this 2-part epoxy. This is probably even a little bit too much for what we're doing, but you don't need much at all. Give this a really good, nice stirring. And then you can experiment with whatever works better for you. For me, taking a little bit and getting it on a Q-tip, and then just taking that and working it into the sides, painting it on there kind of. Because we don't want a lot, otherwise it's going to take a long time for this to dry. Just go around, kind of paint that in there. And now, when that cures, we'll have a nice strong bulkhead there. We can do the same thing on the top. The top doesn't need a whole lot either. It's not really structural at all. So again, just paint a little bit on there, in the corner. And we'll let that dry. So I'm going to set my bulkhead aside. Make sure the paracord's not sitting into the epoxy at all. And that'll give us some time to let that dry before we go and use it. Okay, next we're going to cut our motor mount tube. These are the motors that we're using, these Quest D20 4W motors. This body tube only needs to be as long as the motor itself. So like anywhere, right, like that would be long enough, that would be long enough, that would be long enough. We just don't want to cut it too long or cut it too short. So I'm gonna cut right here is gonna be perfect for this motor. If you wanna know measurement, that measurement's about 75 millimeters long or so. 75 to 80 millimeters is perfect. So to cut this, I'm just gonna grab my knife. You can just freehand it. Put a little bit of pressure and rotating. This one doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't matter if the edge is jagged or not. You can also use these guides. It can help you cut a little bit too. Just take the guide here, put the blade alongside the guide, and just use the edge of this guide as something to guide your blade through. Anyway, that's all we need. It doesn't need to be pretty at all. This is going to be hidden inside the rocket. Okay, so now you see our motor fits in our tube just fine. Next thing we need to do is install a J-hook. Okay, so we got our motor mount cut. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to install our J-hook. This J-hook does two things. It keeps the motor locked inside our body tube. This hook on the top prevents the motor from shooting through our rocket. And this hook down here during the ejection phase keeps the motor from firing out the back of the rocket. So to install this, that's all we want to do. Is you'll see directions that measure all kinds of things, but you just want to make sure that you leave some room here so that we can install our motor. This is about 10 millimeters, I'd say, or so. Let me measure it up. About 8-9 millimeters, if you want to know exactly. That's how much space we should have there. So I'm just going to take and make a mark right here. Where I want that to go. So right there, I'll take my hobby knife and just make a little crease there. I'm going to install the J-hook on there. Just like that. We'll check our distance, and there we go. That's perfect. Okay, so we got that together. Let's go on to our fins and our motor mount. So our fins, we want to sand our edges so that they look like this. We want to sand our leading edges so they're rounded, real nice like that. That's going to help eliminate some drag. Now, I did these ones already. It's rounded. This is the top part of our fin. It's nice and rounded. I did that one too. I'll do this one here for you just to demonstrate. So use the table as your friend. We're going to sand this side, and then the top. We do not need to sand this. We do not need to sand that. So take it, work it on your sandpaper. And you notice I'm changing the angle a little bit just to give it a roundness to it. Do the same thing on the other side. If you want more room for your fingers, come over the side of the table like this and you can really get a nice angle on there. And you can sand until you're really happy with how rounded it is. Now we'll do the same thing on the top side. So it's nice and rounded. I've got my little shop vac here. I'll have this tomorrow for you. The shop vac is dust off. And again, do that on all 3 fins, and I already did that already, so our 3 fins are ready to go. Okay, so we've got our fins all sanded here on the top and on the side, nice and rounded. Let's go ahead and build our motor mount. So we've got our motor mount tube here with our J-hook. We're just going to slide that in here, right over our J-hook. We're not really putting it anywhere particular right now. We're just sliding it on there. Okay, so we've got that slid on there in place. Now, your fins, this is the bottom of the motor mount, this is the top. Our fins all have these lines on them. These lines align with the slots here in our motor mounts. So just line those up. And we're going to put them on there. Some of them are tight. If they're too tight, you can sand it. So like that. And then I use a little bit of C8 just to hold it in place. Just a small tack. Hit it with accelerant. Okay, let's put the next fin on. Take a little bit of CA glue. We're just tacking these in place. And the next one. Okay, let's see which one was it that still needs the CA glue. That one's CA'd. That one's CA'd. It's this one here. Okay, so that is looking good. Next, let's install the Kevlar cord. We've got our fins installed to just our motor mount. Our motor mount tube is not glued yet. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna grab a length of this Kevlar string, about that long, about 24 to 30 inches, somewhere in there. I already have a piece cut. So we're gonna take our string, we're gonna put it through the top hole here. I'm gonna pull it through, and then I'm gonna make a loop knot here, just like this. Pull it around. And the idea with this loop knot, you want it big enough to go around that motor mount tube. So just kind of adjust with your fingers if you need to. And there. So I've got a plenty big, pretty good sized loop. That's perfect for what we're gonna do. Now, our motor mount body tube is not glued in yet. I'm just gonna slide this out. And then I'm gonna drop the loop right over that and then push this back into place. Might take a little finesse to get it to go. And then how much should we push that motor mount through? You want to push the motor mount through, so you see the top part of the retaining hook? That should just be poking through the top. Now we can finish gluing this up. Take a little bit of our CA glue. And I'm just going to put a couple tacks around the top. Just keep everything in place. Little tack there on the side. Hit it with our accelerant. Put just a little tack right here at the top just to keep our J hook from moving around, our retainer hook. Little spritz. And then what we can do to make sure that this is nice and solid, I'm going to mix up some more epoxy. Just a little bit. We don't need a lot. We're not squirting the whole tube out. Just a little tiny bit. This stuff sets fast. So I got my Q-tip. I'm just going to mix this up here. Might have been better to use the wood stick, because now my Q-tip's all messed up. But anyway, just take a little bit, put it around the edge. Let me get a fresh Q-tip. That didn't work very good. So I got a fresh Q-tip. And we're just going to paint it into the corners there. Do the top part of the motor. Just paint a little bit of epoxy in there. And then we're also going to do our fins here. Make sure our fins get attached. Just paint it in there. Rotate this around. We'll do all the sides. And just a little bit. If you use too much, it just takes longer to dry. Last little bit on the top here of our motor mount. Just like that. Make sure I got the bottom good. Okay, I am happy with that. Okay, next thing we're going to do, our couplers had time to dry, so we're going to install the coupler into the top portion of our body tube. So let's just take a look here. Let's designate one in the top, one in the bottom. This side's got a little tiny imperfection from when I cut, so I'm going to use that as the top because it's almost not even perceivable. And I'm going to use this, call this the portion where my coupler is going to get installed. So these couplers are kind of tight. You may have to do some sanding on the inside of the body tube like this, just to help get that coupler to slide in there real nice, if you have to. Clean that out. Okay, these couplers are 100 millimeters in length. So you can see they're 100 millimeters. Since these are kind of a tight fit, normally we would install a coupler at about like that so that it goes halfway in. We're gonna go a little bit more than that because this end we want to slide out during the ejection phase. So I got my ruler on here. That's 50, that would be halfway. I'm gonna go with what's gonna be plenty here, right about 30. That's gonna leave us 30 millimeters of coupler to slide into the body tube. So let's put that in there, and we're gonna install it so that it's like that. So on here, let's take a look. You notice that this coupler now is going to go to about right here when we install it on the inside of the body tube. It's kind of important to know where that's going to be because when we put the glue in here, this glue is kind of thick and it definitely keeps the body tube from sliding, or the coupler from sliding forward. So we use a little bit of our Titebond, quick and thick. Just put a little bit under. And we're gonna take a little bit. And notice, I wanna put this glue way up here. I don't wanna put the glue down here. I'm gonna put it way up here. So I'm just gonna simply kind of mark with my fingers how far I wanna go, and then replicate that and get the glue inside there. And you don't need a lot at all. This glue is plenty strong and it binds quickly. So there's our mark. We want to go to about there. And that's, you'll notice that glue already grabbed. So that's more than adequate. So you can see if I had put the glue inside right here, I would have not been able to get my coupler past that point. Let's see, we got our coupler installed, we got that. The top part, we're good with that. Let's go on and do our fins now. Pause. Okay, so we gave this some time to cure. We're gonna install this now into the bottom part of the rocket. So just drop that string in there. And then this is why we cut those slots so that we can easily, and be careful, you don't want to get your hands into the epoxy because it still may be a little bit wet. You're just gonna slide that down in there like that. And we got a nice fit there. So our rocket, we want our fins to be right at the bottom where that cut would have been. We're going to use just a little bit of CA just to tack this in place. So I put just a little bit of CA glue, give it a spritzing. So now we should have something that looks like this. We're gonna be using some JB Weld. This is 1 minute epoxy. Well, before we even do this, let's put the cap back on. We're gonna need a glove. Okay. Got my gloves. Got our gloves on here. Okay, we don't need much. This is a 2-part epoxy. I'm gonna pour just a little bit out onto the dish. And then we can always mix up more if we need more. gonna use stir this up. This is a 2-part epoxy, so keep stirring. I give it a little dab like this. I give it about I don't know, 20 seconds worth of stirring just to make sure you get it all mixed up. Then we're just going to take a little bit. So I'm using this like a spoon. We're going to put it right there in the crack. And you don't need much, just a little tiny bit. Just a little tiny bit, do ya? I'm going to do all 3 sides. We're making a fillet here is what this is called. So we got all 3 sides a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of this now too. I'm going to put it inside our motor mount around the edges. It may be easier to use a little cotton swab. Get some, I could mix more here. But anyway, and then just use that cotton swab to get some epoxy between the motor mount and the body tube. So anyway, in the class you can mix up more just to make a nice, so you get that all filled in there. Now with my gloves on, I'm gonna take this epoxy and just run over my finger, and we're making a nice fillet here. Just like that. So now we've got the fillets in. I'm going to set this aside to cure. We're going to install our launch lugs or rail buttons here. So I'm just going to grab a pin, and the first one needs to be installed down here. And it just needs to go like that. So I'm just going to hold that right there, put a little mark where my hole is going to get drilled. Take my drill, drill a hole through there, put our nut through like that, and then make sure these have a flat side and a concave side. The flat side goes toward the body tube, the concave side goes out. Grab our little screw, put our screw in there, and we're just going to tighten that down snug. It doesn't have to go overly tight or anything, just like that. Next, we're going to install another launch lug right about there. Notice when this coupler comes down into place, it's going to land, the coupler is going to land right about there at the bottom when it gets installed. So we need that nut to be somewhere about right there. So I'm just going to put a little mark there, and then we're going to drill that. Again, this is paper, it's not wood, so be patient with the drill. The paper's got some flex. Okay, take our nut part, put it through there until you find a little hole for it to go through. This just takes a minute to get it to line up. There we go. And push it through. Again, flat side goes down toward the body tube. The concave side goes out. Grab our screwdriver, tighten that down. Okay, our launch lugs are installed nice and straight. Okay, so we've got our lower portion of our rocket done. Fins are glued in. Top portion. And we got our rail buttons installed there. Next, I'm gonna put the top on, and we have to drill. I already drilled the holes, but I'm gonna go through the motion here. Or actually, I didn't drill the holes, I drilled one there. Anyway, we need to drill holes in the top of the payload bay here, this top body tube, so that the altimeter can breathe. This is our little Estes altimeter that's going to be installed in here. We're just gonna drop that in here. Anyway, it needs to breathe. So I'm gonna put our nose cone on, and notice that the nose cone, when it goes in there, goes about that deep. So we wanna drill our holes somewhere below that line. So we've got one hole there. I'm gonna drill another hole, drill another hole, and another hole. So we got 4 holes now that can breathe. If you want to clean that up, you can use a little piece of sandpaper. You just take the little burrs off there. Just like that. So we've got those 4 holes just so the altimeter can read our altitude. It has to be able to breathe to sense the barometric pressure. Okay, let's put together our egg here. So I'll give you all an egg. You're gonna take your protector and we're gonna put the egg in there. Now, if we just do it like this, it's a tight fit. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna grab some tape here, masking tape. Just grab maybe 18 inches or so of masking tape. I'm gonna put it on the very top of the egg holder here. And you notice as I'm wrapping the tape, I'm gonna pull tight. And this is just slightly compressing the foam for us. And maybe just 1.5 times is all you need. I'll grab another little piece of tape. Do the top part. Again, just put that on there. And then just hold it and pull this tape tight. Not too tight, just tight enough so that our egg can slide in there. Then our altimeter goes in there. And now our nose cone. So the top portion of our rocket is ready to fly. All right, let's keep working here to put this all together. Okay, we're gonna grab a carabiner here, and I've already got my parachute installed, but I'm gonna take it off to show you how to do this. Okay, we've got our carabiner here. First thing I'm gonna do is take my heat shield, and your heat shield is gonna have a little seam right here. You might have to take a utility knife and just cut that seam open just a little tiny bit so we can access it. We're then gonna put our carabiner through there and just pull the heat shield down so it's installed in there. Next, we'll take the paracord, pull that over and pop it into place. And then we'll take our Kevlar string, put that in place and give a pull, and that's slid in there too. Next, let's get our parachute installed. I like to grab the parachute right at the point of the parachute, let the lines all kind of relax. I'm gonna grab all 3 of those lines so that they're nice and tight and everything is equal. equal distance here. I'm going to take that. You notice our carabiner has a swivel bearing at the top. I'll take my 3 lines, poke them through the top, and keep my lines separated so I have that opening. Then I'm going to pull the parachute through just like this, keeping it nice and equal so the lines are equally spaced, just like that. That's about as good as you're going to get. Okay, from there, take our heat shield and just lay our lines inside the heat shield and lay our parachute in there. Nothing fancy. I'm going to fold this over, and then I'm just going to wrap this now. I'm going to take the yellow lines, and I'm not wrapping anything, I'm just making it easy to put inside this body tube. Just like that. Push it all in there. Do the same thing with our paracord. There's 2 ways you can do this. I like to have another teacher hold the top part for you while you stuff all the paracord inside here. It's got a mind of its own. You just got to kind of work with it. Once you get it in there, it'll stay. Now we're going to put the rocket together. So there we go. Our rocket is all together. Now, what you can do from here, you can put your stickers, decals, whatever you want. We have these jumbo markers, acrylic markers. You can paint your rocket if you want, do whatever you want, make it nice and pretty. So after you paint, let's go ahead and install one of our motors. So these are the motors that we're using, these D24W motors. This is the ejection side. This is the thrust side. This is where the hot gas comes out to propel our rocket into the sky. The ejection side is what causes the top part of our rocket to detach, and then the parachute comes out. So to put that in, we're going to put the black side in first and just push that in there. So now we are at our launch pad weight. We have our altimeter, or our payload. We have our egg, which is our payload. We have our parachute, and everything's connected. Let's weigh this now and compare this to what our RockSim results are. So I'm just going to put that on the scale. I'm going to hang my fins over the edge so I get an accurate weight here. And we're at 244 grams. So I'm going to record that. Our launch pad weight, this is our launch pad weight, is 244 grams. I'm going to take the motor out because I also want to do our no motor weight. I'm going to take our motor out, and now we're going to get a no motor weight. So put that on there. Our no motor weight is 219 grams. So our launch pad weight was 244, our no motor weight was 219. I'll put the motor back in. Now, let's go ahead and measure it. So our rocket, from the bottom to the top here, is 520 millimeters. I'm going to write that down. 520 millimeters. And then if I remember right, in RockSim, the predicted altitude is about 250 feet. But go ahead, take a look in your RockSim, see what your predicted altitude was. Now, here's the sheets that I printed out. We got a length of 520 millimeters. RockSim, let's see, our length was 520 millimeters. Our mass, and this is without a motor, was 199 grams. we are at no motor weight 219, so we're off by 20 grams, which isn't bad considering the glue that we used. Just miscellaneous. I don't think in RockSim I accounted for the launch rail buttons, but anyway, that's the reason for that difference. Let's go ahead and figure our CG. You all are going to have these little pieces of wood. What we're going to do, we're going to lay this down on the piece of wood, and we're going to find our center of gravity here. And the way you do that is you just keep moving it until it balances on that piece of wood. Make sure everything's down, right spot. So now I'm going to say our CG is right about here. And I'm just eyeballing where the piece of wood is, and then I'm going to write CG on here. After we've done that, let's take our ruler again and measure our CG from the nose is 282, let's go with 282 millimeters aft of the nose. So 282 millimeters. Our CG in RockSim was predicted to be 241 millimeters. What are we at here? Launchpad F, 282 millimeters. Oh, but this is no motor weight. This is no motor CG. So let's go ahead and we'll do that just to verify it. That's about our no motor CG. Right there. So I'll put no motor CG. All right, let's measure that. Our no motor CG, trying to do this so that you guys can see it, is 255, it looks like. No motor CG. $255. And RockSim calculated 241, so we're really close. So now what we can do, we can take a minute to go back in our RockSim and make some minor adjustments. We'll override these values in RockSim and we'll put our real world values in RockSim. We'll run a prediction and we'll see what altitude we get out of it. Okay, before we head out and launch our rockets, let's go through how we're going to install our igniters. So I'm going to put motor back in here. In our package here, we are going to get our igniters. So you have your igniters here. Be careful with these. You don't want to knock the black powder off the top here. So the way to load this, you're going to take your igniter. I'm going to separate the wires there. I'm going to put the wires in there till they won't go anymore. Now I'm going to take this little wedge. I'm just going to stick that wedge in there. Pin that in place. And go ahead, grab your rocket here and push hard to keep that locked in there. And now our igniter wires, we're ready to go on the launch pad. That's all I think I gotta show you. Maybe I'll show you the altimeter real quick here too. The altimeter, real simple here. You might need something pointy. This is the on-off button right here. So I'm just gonna turn that on. And that's the previous altitude. We're gonna reset that. Just use your finger if you can get it in there. We're just gonna press that button until it goes 0, and that's clear. When you see this 0 here, that means it's ready for flight. So out at the launch pad, we'll make sure that that's ready to go. We're gonna stick that in there just like that and put our nose cone on, and this rocket's ready to fly. The end.